Timeloop Sink Again Beach is a game with interesting mechanics that fall short in a few key areas. Before putting together this review, I played through the title multiple times, achieved each and every achievement, and even made a 100% completion walkthrough guide. At this point, I think I'm ready to give it my seal of approval with a few forewarnings. Ahoy, matey, I'm Scurvy Banana. Feel free to pillage the sub button if you'd like to catch more video reviews, guides, walkthroughs, or simply my general thoughts on pirate-themed games. Besides pirates, I also sometimes cover games with more general tropical topics. Thanks. Timeloop Sink Again Beach self-describes as an unusual gaming experience of non-linear first-person adventure. It released November 16th of 2022 and was made by Fangs Lab and Flatcoon. I'd say it's most similar to a point-and-click adventure game like Monkey Island, but it occupies a first-person viewpoint and has a unique time travel gameplay mechanic.
Ahoy!
The main aspect of gameplay that really makes Timeloop interesting is the time loop itself. In order to solve the puzzles, you must first time travel to various points of the day, as the NPCs all have their own schedules. Each time travel will create a duplicate of yourself running around the island within the same time frame. Running into the copies of your past, present, and future selves will end up breaking the space-time continuum.
Part 2. The encounter could create a time paradox, the results of which could cause a chain reaction that would unravel the very fabric of the space-time continuum and destroy the entire universe.
Thus granting a game over. This means that the longer you take to solve the puzzles, the more time travels you use, the potential difficulty rises. Aside from this temporal action, the rest of the gameplay outside of conversations with characters is pretty much more of a walking simulator, or point-and-click adventure. You walk around the island retrieving the correct items to bring to the correct person at the correct time. This leads into probably the biggest problem that can potentially present itself in-game: continuity problems. It is possible to talk with and complete quest steps outside of an intended order that makes absolute sense for the end user. While not incredibly egregious, I did encounter this at a couple points. Outside of this, my only gripe with the gameplay was that I almost immediately ran into invisible walls on my first playthrough.
What do we have to do?
Just start talking.
The plot revolves around the player character Jack, who is visiting a death island in order to dump his friend Donald's ashes. It has a small but colorful cast of characters such as a monk, a voodoo bandit, a grave-robbing archaeologist, an evil witch doctor, and of course other piratey types. Most conversation is chock full of Easter eggs referential to pop culture media. Harry Potter, Monkey Island, The Big Lebowski, Scarface, just to name a few. Depending on your tolerance for this sort of constant lowbrow media citation, you'll find this either entertaining or outright gaudy.
So let's start. Nulle cogitatonis sordiade pace imagines, ut custodes te aeternum, non dura verba nisi amor, noli quaerera ad fugidium ab hoc amor. It seems to have worked.
In terms of tolerance to certain aspects, this game does also include some long cutscenes. Upon first playing, I was actually a bit taken aback by just how long some of them felt, but after further review, I realized this is likely intentional game design, as it is possible to run into your past, present, future selves mid-dialogue as a means to trigger game over. Also, might be worth noting, sometimes in these exchanges, animations can get a little buggy. Besides some janky animations, the graphics look pretty decent. I especially liked hanging around the environments and taking in the landscapes. On the other hand, the Isle of Death seems to be home to some odd characters. Real pretty land, real ugly dudes, barely clothed and smoking hot babes. While nothing in this game is explicit by any means, I could definitely see the sensibilities of some to consider this sort of character design to be a bit over the top. As per user interface, I would have really liked the option to resize it. As it stands, the UI and text is very small, and I can see this being an issue for those with faulty eyes. By this I mean me. I have a faulty eye. I had to squint. The weakest aspect of this game is in its audio department. Despite boasting its voice work as professional, there were points where I wasn't sure if they were actually even real. I felt suspect about some of them enough to actually write in my review notes while playing AI voices question mark. After game completion and looking at the credits, it seems that they are not computer generated. Perhaps this is a disconnect between the game's native language and me playing the English localization? What's worse than the hit or miss of voice work is the soundtrack seems to be comprised of royalty-free tunes. This in and of itself isn't the end of the world, but it felt a bit immersion breaking considering how popular some of the royalty-free soundtracks chosen actually seem to be. Of course, this varies by experience, but personally, I hear some of these tracks on a fairly regular basis as background music in YouTube videos. Overall, I recommend getting this one while it is on sale. To me, the unique gameplay mechanic was interesting enough to make up for the negatives I have with the gaming experience. It's a bit rough around the edges and relatively short, but it will ultimately remain a memorable gaming experience for me.